This is the Range Rover Velar, and depending on your opinion, it is either the epitome of marketing cynicism or it is Land Rover giving the people exactly what they want. You see, a few years ago, the company realised that there was a significant number of potential customers who wanted a bit more size and luxury than an Evoque could deliver, but who couldn't or wouldn't stretch to a Range Rover Sport. And for those people, the Velar was introduced, which splits its two sister cars right down the middle in terms of both size and price. The Velar is arguably a more style-led proposition, and although it's due to get a facelift later on in 2023, it's quite difficult to tell the difference between the older ones like this one and the newer ones. It's safe to say they are both super smart. This one is also specified with the R-Dynamic Black Pack, which accounts for all the glossy black highlights dotted around the car's exterior. Style is nothing without substance, however, if you're buying a car this size. You need it to be a practical family car as well as stylish. And once you open your powered tailgate, which is standard on all but the entry-level models, you get a decent square opening and a large boot. It is worth noting that this is a P400e plug-in hybrid, and like most hybrids that are plug-in, you do tend to lose a bit of boot space to the batteries, which are not there. That's a handy stowage underneath there with the battery, so it has a very slightly smaller boot compared with conventionally powered Velars. However, the deficit is only about 50 litres here, which really isn't all that much compared to what you lose in most other plug-in hybrids. So you still get a very useful space totalling 503 litres. However, that space will be eaten into further by the fact there's no underfloor storage for your cables, meaning that they'll have to travel in the main part of the boot. And when you fold the rear seats down, which drop in a versatile 40-20-40 split, you're left with this odd step down from the boot floor to the backs of the folded chairs. If you're travelling in the back of the Velar, you probably won't have any complaints over space. I'm only 5'4.5" and I've got plenty of legroom and headroom. The reality is though, even if you're a whole foot taller than me, you'll probably have enough space as well. The only time it starts to get a little bit cramped is when you've got three people sitting side by side, because shoulder room is not quite as spacious and this middle seat is rather narrow and there is a huge tunnel here, so you've either got to put your feet either side of it or share the footwell with one of the outer seat passengers. If you buy a Range Rover, you expect a feeling of class and luxury, and the Velar delivers. Okay, so it's not as ostentatiously plush as a Range Rover Sport or a full-size Range Rover. However, it is plenty posh enough to make you feel special. It also feels quite high-tech, thanks to not one but two touchscreens that you use to navigate all the car's various functions and features, of which there are a great many as standard. Does it look better than conventional buttons and switches? Yes. Is it any more user-friendly? No. But in fairness, it's not too difficult to find your way around once you're used to the system. It's also worth noting that the upcoming facelift will do away with the bottom screen, instead giving you a bigger top screen that will do the lot. Remains to be seen how user-friendly that'll be. There are a couple of other annoyances though. For example, the starter button is hidden behind the steering wheel and the indicator stalk. And just like other Jaguar Land Rover models, the gear selector requires you to push this button here to select drive or reverse. It's all fine if you remember that. If you forget, which can often be the case, the lever still moves to where it needs to go before returning to the centre. Critically, the gear doesn't engage, so you're left wondering why you're either still in neutral and going nowhere, or even worse, why you're still in the gear you thought you'd just come out of. Other than the gear selector, the powertrain in the P400e is really good. It combines a 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine with an electric motor to give you just shy of 400 brake horsepower. And unsurprisingly, with that generous power output, the pace is pretty good. 0 to 60 is taken care of in just 5.1 seconds. We've tried this powertrain in a number of other Jaguar Land Rover products, and in some, the power delivery can nevertheless feel a little bit hesitant. Happily, that's not the case here, and the petrol engine, electric motor and 8-speed automatic gearbox all combine smoothly and effectively to give you plenty of punch in all driving situations. With a full battery, you can drive on electric power only up to 32 miles, although in the real world that is more likely to be 25 miles. And if you keep your throttle inputs gentle, you'll be able to do that smoothly and quietly all the way up to motorway speeds. When the petrol engine is eventually called into action, it stays nice and quiet for the vast majority of the time. Sure, it can sound a little coarse if you really work it hard, but you barely ever need to. Don't be taken in by the P400e's official fuel economy figure of 122 miles per gallon, because those tests have been done in laboratories which are unrealistically flattering to plug-in hybrid vehicles. It really does depend on how you use the car. If you use it just for short journeys and the vehicle battery is always topped up, then you'll hardly ever need to dip into that petrol engine power. However, if you're not doing that and you're regularly using the petrol engine, then you will notice a very different figure altogether. Regardless of real-world fuel economy, the P400e is definitely the Velar to pick if you're a company car driver. The official CO2 figures are what governs your benefit in kind tax payments, and on the P400e you'll be taxed on between 12 and 16% of the car's value, while on all other Velars it'll be the full 37%. That's going to save you a whole heap of cash. It's also worth bearing in mind that the plug-in hybrid system is due to be fettled in the upcoming facelift, which promises to improve efficiency and to extend the electric-only range a little further. Otherwise, the Velar's driving experience is pretty easygoing. The suspension is soft and forgiving, although sometimes it can catch you out on the odd sharp rut or bump. You can get expensive optional air suspension, which we haven't had an opportunity to test yet. And the P400e has adaptive dynamics, which uses adaptive dampers to alter the suspension depending on the situation you're in or the driving mode you have selected. You have dynamic, eco and comfort modes on top of all the various other off-roading modes. This particular car is also fitted with an additional system known as configurable dynamics, which lets you use this screen to set your own parameters. In truth though, however you play about with these things, it makes barely any difference to the way the Velar drives. Generally, the car combines a reasonable amount of comfort with a reasonable amount of sharpness. It's not the most dynamically polished car of its type in either respect, but it certainly doesn't disgrace itself. The steering is a high point too. There may not be that much feel, however, it's really well weighted and it's responsive enough to make driving it really rather satisfying. So what marks the Velar out against rivals such as the Porsche Macan and BMW X4? Well, you could argue that it's more stylish, and if you're one of the few buyers that will genuinely take it off-road, then it's probably going to get you further into the countryside than those rivals. Other than that, the Velar is a competitive car rather than a game-changing one, but importantly, there's no single area in which it underperforms. So if you're taken with its looks, which you probably are, then we can't think of many reasons to avoid it. What do you think of the Range Rover Velar? Let us know in the comments, and make sure you subscribe to the CarGurus UK YouTube channel, remembering to turn on your notifications. And if we've inspired you to start shopping for your next car, come and find it on cargurus.co.uk. And using our clever pricing technology, we'll even tell you whether the dealer selling it is giving you a good price or not.